All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on Area 51. You know it. I know it. It's that place that makes everybody think about government secrets being hushed up.
Mhm.
And maybe even aliens.
Yeah, it's really become a cultural phenomenon, that idea of the unknown, you know, what we can't quite grasp, but we're just fascinated by.
Absolutely. And you can't talk about Area 51 without talking about Bob Lazar, the guy who back in the 80s claimed to have actually worked on reverse engineering alien technology at a secret base near Area 51.
It's a story that really captures the imagination, working on flying saucers, powered by this element that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 14 years. It's just wild.
So let's break it down. What exactly did Lazar claim? He said that he worked at a place called S4. It's supposed to be this super secret facility
Hmm.
tucked away near Area 51. And his job, he says, was to figure out how alien technology worked.
He went into some pretty specific details, too. Described seeing 9 different saucers. One of them he called the sports model. Even mentioned these small seats inside. Too small for humans. And he claimed that the fuel source was something called element 115, which we now know as moscovium.
And moscovium wasn't actually synthesized in a lab until 2003. So how could Lazar have known about it back in 1989?
Yeah, that's a great question. It gets even more interesting when you think about the challenges of actually creating super heavy elements like moscovium. You need these incredibly powerful particle accelerators, and even then the atoms only exist for a fraction of a second. So for Lazar to even know about this element, let alone claim that it was being used as fuel, it raises a lot of questions.
He also produced a W-2 form, supposedly showing employment with the Department of Naval Intelligence in Nevada, and talked about using Janet Airlines, a secret airline, to get to work.
Which at the time nobody even knew existed, but later it was confirmed that Janet Airlines is a real thing. It's operated by the Air Force to transport personnel to sensitive sites.
So that's one detail in Lazar's story that turned out to be true. And that's what makes his story so compelling. Some of the details, however outlandish, are actually verifiable. But then there are other parts that make you wonder about his credibility.
Exactly, like his claimed degrees from MIT and Caltech. Investigators haven't been able to find any record of him attending either institution. No transcripts, no diplomas, nobody remembers him being there.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he was willing to fabricate his academic background. What else might he have embellished?
And his work at Los Alamos National Laboratory doesn't quite add up either. Records show a Robert Lazar listed as a technician for a contractor, not a scientist directly employed by the lab, which is what he claimed.
So is it possible that he was involved in some capacity,
Hmm.
but exaggerated his role? Maybe to make his story more captivating?
It's possible maybe he was a low-level participant who caught glimpses of classified information and then, for whatever reason, decided to build a more elaborate narrative around it.
That brings us to the heart of the question. How much of Bob Lazar's story can we actually believe?
Yeah, it's a puzzle
Yeah.
with some pieces missing,
Yeah.
you know? And it's hard to separate fact from fiction when you're dealing with a topic as shrouded in secrecy as Area 51.
Right, so it's like the secrecy itself breeds these kinds of stories. People are naturally drawn to the unknown. And when you have a place like Area 51, where information is so tightly controlled, it's easy for speculation to run wild.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes Area 51 such a fascinating case study, not just in terms of potential extraterrestrial contact, but also how we as a society grapple with government secrecy and the limits of our own knowledge.
So let's talk about Area 51 itself. What do we actually know about this place?
Well, we know it's a highly classified U.S. Air Force facility located in the Nevada desert. Officially, it's known as Homey Airport or Groom Lake. It's part of the Nevada Test and Training Range, this vast area used for experimental aircraft testing
Wow.
and other classified military activities.
And it was established in 1955, right?
Yeah.
Around the time that UFO sightings were starting to become more frequent, and captured the public's imagination.
The timing is certainly interesting, and it's that confluence of events that has fueled so much of the speculation around Area 51. It's easy to connect the dots, so to speak, and see a potential link between the rise of UFO sightings and the establishment of a secret military base in the middle of the desert.
It makes you wonder what they were really up to out there.
There's no doubt that Area 51 has been used for the development and testing of advanced aircraft technology. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. These were all developed and tested at Area 51 under a veil of secrecy.
Which makes sense from a national security standpoint. You don't want your enemies knowing about your latest and greatest military tech.
Exactly. But that secrecy also creates a breeding ground for speculation and conspiracy theories. And when you have a place like Area 51, where the government has been demonstrably secretive about its activities, it's not hard to imagine that they might be hiding even more extraordinary secrets, like captured alien spacecraft or evidence of extraterrestrial life.
Okay, so we've talked about Lazar's claims, we've explored what we know about Area 51, but there's still this nagging question, why? Why all the secrecy? What's the government trying to protect?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are several schools of thought on this. Some people believe that the government is simply trying to protect sensitive military technology.
Which is understandable
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Right, but it's hard to imagine that they need that level of secrecy
Yeah.
for every project. I mean, we've eventually found out about the U-2 and the SR-71.
Right, and that's where the other theories come in. Some people believe that the government is hiding evidence of extraterrestrial contact, whether it's crashed UFOs, alien bodies, or even advanced technology that we're not ready to understand.
And then there's the idea that they might be conducting experiments that are considered too dangerous or unethical to be public knowledge, things that could potentially be weaponized, or that could have unintended consequences for humanity. It's a lot to think about, and ultimately we may never know the full truth about what goes on at Area 51. But that doesn't mean we can't explore the possibilities, weigh the evidence, and engage in some healthy speculation.
That's what we're here for, right? To delve into the unknown, to challenge our assumptions, and to try to make sense of the world around us, even when the answers are elusive. Feels like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, that's the thing about Area 51. It's a
Yeah.
it's a rabbit hole that just seems to go deeper and deeper the more you dig.
And Bob Lazar, with his captivating story, adds another layer of intrigue. Even if we take his claims with a grain of salt, there are those intriguing details that just make you wonder.
Those seemingly verified details, like Janet Airlines and Element 115, are what make his story so hard to dismiss completely. If he was fabricating, how did he have access to information that wasn't publicly known at the time?
Right, it's not like he just made up random stuff. There's a kernel of truth in there somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's what keeps people coming back to his story, trying to decipher what's real and what's embellished.
It speaks to a larger question about how we approach information in the age of misinformation. How do we sift through the noise, evaluate sources, and come to our own conclusions, especially when dealing with topics as sensitive and controversial as this one?
It's a challenge for sure. We're bombarded with information from all sides, and it's not always easy to determine what's credible and what's not.
Absolutely. It's more important than ever to think critically, to question everything, and to be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Speaking of questioning, let's circle back to Lazar for a moment. If we entertain the possibility that he was telling the truth, at least partially, what does that say about the government's involvement in all of this?
It would suggest a level of secrecy and control that goes far beyond what most people would imagine, and it raises some uncomfortable questions about transparency and accountability.
What are the implications of a government that operates with that level of secrecy? Where do we draw the line between national security and the public's right to know?
Those are tough questions, and there aren't any easy answers, but they're questions we need to keep asking because ultimately, it's about trust. Can we trust our government to be truthful with us, even when it comes to matters of national security?
And on a larger scale, can we trust the information that we're being given, whether it's from the government, the media, or even from individuals claiming to have inside knowledge?
It all comes back to critical thinking. We can't just blindly accept everything we're told. We need to be skeptical. We need to ask questions, and we need to be willing to dig deeper to find the truth.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Area 51 and the enigmatic Bob Lazar, we're left with more questions than answers, but hopefully with a renewed sense of curiosity and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Exactly. Area 51 remains a symbol of the unknown, a place where the lines between fact and fiction blur. And Bob Lazar's story, whether true or fabricated, serves as a reminder that the truth is often elusive and that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey, not a destination.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. What do you think is the most plausible explanation for Lazar's story? And the ongoing secrecy surrounding Area 51? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and let us know your thoughts.